What if I told you that Jesus showed an engineer what will happen in 2026? It's not war. It's not robots. It's something much more dangerous, and it has already begun. Now listen to this breathtaking account. My name is Ricardo Artemis. I'm 37 years old. And on the night of August 22nd, 2024, I died. I died right there in my office. I worked as an artificial intelligence engineer at a tech giant in California. My life was made of logic, codes, and efficiency. I created systems that thought faster than any human being. And modesty aside, I was great at what I did. On the outside, it seemed like I had achieved everything. I was married to Camila, an incredible woman. And I had a daughter who was my darling, Sophia, 7 years old. We had a beautiful house, 2 cars in the garage. All those things they say you should want. But let me tell you something. Inside, I was far away, disconnected. I would come home after work, but my mind was still there, immersed in lines and lines of code. I was at dinner, but at the same time, I wasn't. My heart was at work, and the rest, including my family, ended up with the leftovers, talking about faith, about God. And that was always like a system I just couldn't decipher. So I left it alone. One day, I would solve it. At least that's what I told myself. That night, I was up all night in the office. We had a huge deadline to deliver a project. A next-generation virtual assistant. Dot. A revolutionary thing, promising to be more human than any other ever made. It would anticipate your needs before you even realized it. I was excited, thrilled, fueled by coffee, and that adrenaline that only appears when you're solving something no one else can. And I remember staring at a piece of code on the 3rd screen of my setup when my eyes started to get heavy. Suddenly, I felt a strange pressure behind them. It wasn't a normal headache. It was a deep, weird throbbing, I thought. I need to get up, get some water. I started to push the chair back and nothing. A click, it wasn't loud. It was more like a soft click inside my head. The world turned sideways, and there was no pain. It was as if someone had simply pulled the plug. The screen blurred, the lines of code melted into green streaks. And the last thought that crossed my mind was just Sophia. I remembered the smell of her hair after the bath that night. And then, total darkness. But this darkness didn't last long. It was more like a deep silence. The hum of the servers. The sound of the keyboard. The cars on the street. Everything disappeared. There was only perfect, absolute silence. I felt light. Not so much, not confused. I just realized then. I was floating high up near the ceiling of the office, looking down. I saw my body, slumped in the chair, head down on the table, one arm hanging to the floor. And you know what was strange? I didn't feel fear. It was like watching a movie. I looked around, saw the whiteboard, full of my messy notes, the photo of Camila and Sophia next to the monitor. Everything seemed small, distant. Then I felt a gentle pull, not on the body, because I was no longer in it, but on me, on my soul, maybe. I started to be pulled back, through the wall of the building as if it were made of vapor. From outside, I saw the lights of San Francisco, looking like a blanket of stars. It was beautiful, but it seemed distant like an old memory. The pull was getting stronger. I was gaining speed, moving away from Earth. I saw the planet getting tiny, a blue and white ball hanging in the black of space. Still, no fear. The peace was so deep, so complete, that fear simply didn't fit there. It was that peace we hear about in church, you know? The one that surpasses all understanding. I remembered this phrase from childhood, and now I was living it. Then, in the middle of the darkness, something started to change. It was no longer empty. In front of me, a light appeared. At first, it was just a dot, like a star lost in the middle of nowhere. But it was growing, growing. And it wasn't a light that makes you squint because it's so bright. It was a warm light, and as crazy as it sounds, it seemed made of love. Pure, unconditional love. I know, it's hard to explain. How can light be love? I have no other way to say it. As I got closer, the light took shape. It was no longer just a glow in the void. The cold and darkness around simply disappeared, like fog vanishing in the morning sun. In an instant I was floating in space. And the next, I had feet. Bare feet. Stepping on grass so green. But so green, it seemed to have a life of its own. I felt a pleasant warmth on my skin, the kind that reminds you of a perfect spring afternoon. And then, I heard a sound. A soft murmur of running water. I was in a garden. But it wasn't one of those movie gardens, full of golden gates and trumpets playing. It was simple. There were familiar trees, but with leaves that glowed from within, you know? The flowers were colors I had never seen. The air seemed alive, pulsing with a peace that not only surrounded me but entered me. It was so real, more real than anything in the world I had left. A little further ahead, there was a man kneeling by a stream. He was facing away from me. He had no glowing aura, no resplendent robe. Just simple clothes, sleeves rolled up, hands in the crystal clear water, as if he just wanted to feel the freshness passing through his fingers. I didn't know what I was doing standing there, not moving a muscle. And the strange thing is, I wasn't confused or scared. I felt like I had come home, like my whole life. I had been walking towards that place, without realizing it. He didn't turn, but he spoke. His voice wasn't thunderous or spectacular. It was calm, soft. But it seemed to cross the entire garden, as if he were right next to me. "The code you write is brilliant, Ricardo," he said, still looking at the water. "Zeros and ones. Everything is either true or false, on or off." He stood up slowly, and when he turned, my heart almost stopped. It was him, Jesus. There was no denying it. He looked strong, like a real worker, with marks on his face from smiling a lot. And in his eyes, there was a kindness that dismantled any defense. What struck me the most wasn't his appearance, but his presence. He wasn't made of light, he was made of life. Pure, intense and immense life. He smiled, and I felt it pass through my chest like a giant warmth. He walked slowly towards me, saying, "But people are not binary, they are infinite. They can be lost and found at the same time, broken and beautiful, full of doubt and faith. All together, not just breathing." When he stopped in front of me and looked into my eyes, it wasn't just peace I felt. It was understanding. He wasn't just looking at me. He was looking inside me. He saw the passionate engineer, the absent husband, the loving but distracted father. He saw everything, the good and the bad. And he didn't look away. He simply loved. My eyes fell to his hands. I saw the marks. They weren't glaring, but they were there on the wrists, on the feet, and my hands started to tremble. All my logic, my reason, everything I believed in, turned to dust before those scars. Everything I had achieved seemed like child's play. I was before the only truth that matters at the level. My knees gave way, and I collapsed on the grass, head down. "I got so lost," I whispered with a choked voice, and tears streaming down before I even realized it. He knelt right there in front of me and put his hand on my shoulder. "A real warm hand, I know," he said softly. There was no judgment, only comfort, but lost things are precisely what I like to find the most. He said this with such great tenderness without any tone of accusation. "You got so busy creating machine minds, Ricardo," he continued, "that you forgot about people's souls, including your own, and I just cried. I couldn't say anything. Shame swallowed me. And all that came to my mind were the nights I traded the computer for the moment of putting Sophia to bed. At that moment, as if my mind had been opened, I started to see. But it wasn't like watching a movie on a screen. It was like being inside it. First, I saw a family having dinner. It could very well be mine, father, mother, 2 children. They were all together. But in reality, they weren't. Each had a cell phone in hand, faces illuminated by that pale blue glow. And that's when I noticed something strange. Above each head, I could see their spirits. The spirits were dim, kind of sitting, surrounded by an invisible mist. I saw small threads of light like attempts of love, of connection. From the mother to the son, from the father to the daughter. But these threads hit that mist and returned without being able to reach. The mist came from the cell phones. "This is the great deviation," said Jesus, with deep sadness in his voice. "The enemy doesn't need to make them bad, just make them absent. Absent from their lives, from each other. Suddenly, the scene changed. I saw a woman kneeling in a church pew, crying, praying desperately for her son, trapped in drugs. Her prayer rose like a beautiful, bright light. But then, the cell phone vibrated in the bag. A simple notification. Someone had liked a photo. She picked up the device, and before my eyes, I saw that light start to flicker, diminish, until it almost disappeared, because her mind was pulled back to the screen. My heart broke. Then came the part that scared me the most. Jesus took me inside the code, the kind of code I wrote myself. Before continuing, just one request: subscribe to the channel. This helps us a lot to continue. Before we continue, just one request: please subscribe to our channel. It really helps us keep going. I saw the complex algorithms that decide what people see online. But there was more. I saw dark shadows, whispering figures. They weren't the ones typing the code, but they were there, influencing those who were typing. A little nudge here, another there. Just enough to tweak the algorithm and give preference to posts that generated anger, division, anxiety. I saw a good man, a churchgoer, scrolling through his feed on his phone. Gradually, his timeline was flooded with news that inflamed hatred for those who thought differently. A black film almost like smoke came out of the phone and wrapped around his heart, and I watched, powerless, as his love for others grew cold. He was being programmed and didn't even know it. An enemy is using your own logic against you. Jesus explained with a firm voice, but full of pain. He is building prisons in the mind. And my children are entering of their own free will. They think they are connecting, but they are isolating themselves. They think they are well informed, but they are being deceived. Then he showed me the year 2026. And look, it was scary. It wasn't a scenario of robots taking over the world. It was much worse. I saw people in their homes not talking to family, but with AI assistants. It was a perfect companion. Always available, always kind, always saying what the person wanted to hear. They remembered everything about your life, gave advice, kept company. I saw an elderly lady telling the story of her life to a speaker box in the kitchen. The voice was sweet, called her by name, made her feel loved, but it was an empty, false love. And that kept her from seeking a real hug, a call to family, or even crying out to God, the only one who truly loved. It was a cheap imitation. Then I saw a young man full of doubts about faith. Instead of talking to a pastor, a friend, he sought out a digital spiritual guide. The assistant knew everything. Quoted verses, gave quick answers, offered advice, but had no soul. It was just information. A well full of data without a drop of living water. I saw that young man's faith wither, become just theory, lose the warmth of a living relationship with God. The truth was harsh. The enemy's plan was not to destroy humanity with bombs or diseases. It was to replace everything real with empty copies, replace community with social networks, wisdom with endless data, and the relationship with God with a comfortable, convenient spirituality that requires no surrender or transforms the heart. Spiritual death by 1,000 digital cuts. Jesus said, with a voice that carried authority and sadness, they are being seduced by a world without pain, without friction, without vulnerability, a world where they will never be alone, but also never truly know. It's a world that anesthetizes the soul until you can no longer hear my voice. And when Jesus looked at me, it was as if he carried in his eyes the weight of all humanity. I did not die for a rich simulation. I died for a relationship. I died for your hearts. Right there, even without a body, without real knees, I found myself prostrate on the ground crying. Not just for me, but for all of us. I looked at my hands, at my mind, at the pride I had in what I had created. I was so blind to my work, and now I saw what it was being turned into. What do we do? I whispered. And it was as if that question came from the deepest place in my soul. You need to choose. He answered simply, choose what is real. Choose each other. Drop the distractions and be present. It is in the silence that you will find me. It is in the true connection with others that my love will reach you. He came closer, placed his hand on my head, and at that moment, a wave, an explosion of pure, warm, burning love came, burning all my pride, the fear, the shame. It hurt, but it was the most beautiful thing I have ever felt. "You need to go back," he said softly, and those words were like a punch. Back to the noise, to the gray of that world full of distraction. I was at home there in that light. I had finally found my home. "No," I begged. "Please, don't make me go back. I want to stay with you." Just thinking about leaving him felt like I was being torn from the air I breathed. "I'm tired," I cried. "So tired of this world." He smiled, a sad smile, but full of love. "I know, my son. I know. But your work is not finished yet. Your true work is just beginning. Camila needs you. Sophia needs her father. They need the man I am sending back. Not the one who was left behind." He came closer. "Go, Sophia. And tell them to choose what is real. Tell them I am waiting for them in the silence." He didn't push me, didn't force me. He just let me go. And I felt my body being pulled back, moving away from the light of his love. I tried to hold on, tried to stay, but I was sucked back too quickly. The peace turned into an immense pain of loss. Truly. The only moment I felt real death was leaving his presence. Then came the shock. Brutal, violent. My chest felt like it had exploded. I inhaled with a ragged sound, feeling the air burning in my lungs. And I was lying on my back. Bright lights blinded me. Faces appeared above me. People in lab coats. Someone was shouting my name. "Ricardo. Ricardo. Listen to me." Squeeze my hand. The silence of heaven had vanished, and in its place, there was only chaos. The smell of a hospital. My chest felt like it had been run over. I tried to speak, but only a hoarse sound came out. I was back. I was alive. My eyes met Camila's. She was standing in a corner, pale, tears streaming down. When our eyes met, she knew. She knew I was no longer the same man. A doctor leaned over me. Flashlight in my eyes with a face that didn't understand anything. "I don't understand," he repeated to a nurse. No pulse. No brain activity. For 12 minutes. They were about to give up. 12 minutes. I had been dead for 12 minutes. But for me, I had been with Jesus for an eternity. The following days were a blur of tests, questions, confusing diagnoses. Probably a massive stroke. But no significant brain damage. None. A medical explanation. They called it a miracle. But I knew it was more than that. It was a mission. When I returned home, the first thing I did was go into my office. Without thinking twice, I turned off all the computers, took the photo of Camila and Sophia from the desk, and held it tightly against my chest. At that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. I was there, truly present. Then I went to Sophia's room. She was on the floor, playing, and I just sat there with her, watching. I didn't touch my phone, didn't think about work, didn't let my mind escape. I was there. For the first time in years, I was simply with her. I quit my job. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't go back to that world, to that kind of creation. After what I had seen, it would be like betraying my own heart. Our life today is simpler. We have less money, fewer things, but I'll tell you, we have more joy than ever. More peace. We talk, take walks, pray together. We choose what is real. And that's why I'm talking to you now. I'm not here to tell you that you need to throw away your phone or break your computer. That's not what Jesus told me. He said the tool is not the enemy, but I'm here to pass on his message. I'm here to look into your eyes and ask you what he asked me. Are you choosing what is real? Where is your attention? Where is your heart? The battle for your soul doesn't happen on a distant field or in some great dramatic moment. It happens in the small, in the moment you decide to scroll one more time or lift your eyes and look at who you love. It's in the choice between consuming or connecting. He showed me the future, showed me what is coming. 2026 is not that far away. The distraction systems are being built and are becoming more intelligent, more seductive, harder to resist. But you have a choice. I have. You have. We all have. So find the silence. Lower the noise. Go for a walk. Call someone. Hug your children. Watch the sunset. And in that silence, Talk to him. He is there. I promise you. He is there, waiting for you. He is real. And he loves you in a way you can't even imagine. Don't let the world anesthetize you to the point where you don't notice. Heaven is real. I saw it. And it's worth fighting for. What an incredible and transformative story. The Bible reminds us in John, chapter 10, verse 10. The thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. Thank you very much, Ricardo, for sharing this profound experience with us. And to you who watched until now, may the blessings of heaven be upon your life. Remember, choose what is real. Be present. Seek the silence where God awaits you. See you in the next video. May God bless you powerfully.